Okay. Uh, Good evening. Welcome to April's meeting of the Calumet Nature Exchange. Please advise if an Indiana teacher wishes to earn professional development credit. I am recording this evening's session and it will be available on Ollie's website within a week. The agenda calls for self-introductions followed by tonight's speaker. So let's get started with self-introductions. I am Michael Bowes, Executive Director of the Association for the Wolf Lake Initiative. And Tyrone?
Yes, Tyrone Haymore here from Robbins History Museum.
Okay. Wayne?
Greetings. Greetings, y'all. How y'all doing?
All right.
Hello.
Hey, Tyrone. This is Blake. How are you, man?
Okay. Right.
I was wondering if you focus on Native Americans and early settlers of the Calumet area.
I can, when you say Native American, you're talking about Indians?
Yeah.
Oh, a little bit. It's a little bit we know, not a whole lot. We
You
do
know-
know that, go ahead.
You know about any Black settlers who used to live in the Calumet area in the time of the Underground Railroad?
Yes.
Blake, let's finish the introductions. Jane,
Hi, can you guys hear me?
we can hear you.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Jane Healy. I'm a teacher at St. Francis de Sales High School. I teach science, and I'm happy to join you guys tonight. I may end up turning up my camera just because I'm doing this on my phone because I lost my computer to my daughter tonight who's doing a project. So, and I don't know if I'll have enough bandwidth to like have my camera on and watch. So if I go incognito, it's not because I don't want you to see me. It's just it being what it is. Thanks, guys.
I have a brother that used to go to St. Francis de Sales.
It's a great school. We really like it.
Okay, Michael?
Yeah, Mike Elbreth, Ollie board member, retired educator, proud 1968 graduate of St. Francis de Sales.
Oh, nice.
You tell me what that is. Kathleen? Eve?
My name is Eve Doré. I'm from Whiting, Indiana, and I'm an interested citizen.
Okay, Pat?
Hi, I'm Pat Pearson. Just a hiker, a biker, a bird watcher. Love everything about the Calumet and love to learn about it. So I appreciate everybody's expertise. Thank you.
Alan?
I'm a bird monitor, frog monitor, and more interested in doing some more dragonfly and butterfly monitoring too.
Okay, Jeremy?
Good evening, everyone. Jeremy Strickland, the Director of Outreach and Community Engagement with Illinois DNR, also newly appointed board member.
Okay.
Yeah. Nicely done.
Lee? Okay. Abby?
Oh, I'm Abby Romo from the Nature Museum. And I'm excited to learn more about the Calumet and also see where we can support each other and just grow awareness for each other's resources.
Okay. Now I welcome tonight's speaker is Marwah Saleh. You can correct me on that, but on the pronunciation. But she's with the education programs specialist at the Chicago Academy of Sciences at Peggy Notebaert Nature Museum. And she'll be talking about her work on the southeast side. Marwah?
Thanks, Michael. Hi, everyone. I'm Marwah Saleh, but you could just call me Marwah. Like Michael said, I work at the Peggy Notebaert Nature Museum. I work in our education department with Abby Romo, who is here tonight. So all of the work that I will be talking about today is not my work. It's me and Abby's work and all the wonderful scientists and monitors that work on this project. So I'm just the mouthpiece for all the wonderful work that a lot of other people are doing as well. So I've been at the Nature Museum for about a year and a half. I have my bachelor's is in ecology and museum studies, and I was a preschool teacher before this. I love birding in my free time and just like doing community science in my free time. And I work across student and teacher programs at the Nature Museum. But this Calumet project that I'm going to talk about today is kind of my passion project. It's my baby, and I have discovered like how much I love the Calumet region through this project. So I'm very excited to talk about it today. And let's see if, perfect. So I have 3 bullets on this agenda. I'm gonna talk a little bit about the Calumet Community Science Partnership, which is what the project that Abby and I lead. And then I'll give a brief overview of the 3 community science projects at the Nature Museum. Just so I don't assume any knowledge, do people know like what community science is, like what that term usually refers to? And if you do, I invite you to share in the chat or like unmute. Ooh. And if we're feeling shy, that's okay. I can also talk. Okay. Oh, I see somebody put something in the chat. Nope, help us. Okay. So community science is essentially when scientists, so like professional scientists and community members, laymen or lay people, come together and do science. So hence the community. And I see I do not know what this is. Okay, great. See, it's good to ask. So community science has many names. It can be referred to as citizen science as well, or C science. But again, it's essentially people coming together and collecting data or looking at data or analyzing data. Any work that scientists and communities do together can be referred to as community science. So I'm going to be using the term community science to describe 3 different projects that we host at the Nature Museum. Before I do that, I'm going to talk a little bit about this Calumet Community Science Partnership. So it has kind of 3 parts to it. It's the Calumet, so a lot of the work that happens, or all of the work that happens, focuses on the Calumet region, specifically on the Illinois side. The community science part, so it is focused on community science and wildlife monitoring, and it's a partnership. So it's not just scientists doing work, it's everyone coming together and doing the work together. The goal of this partnership was to give people an accessible pathway to wildlife monitoring. So when you are involved in a community science project, you're collecting data on a specific organism. We're going to talk a little bit about that in just a second. And that data is really, really, really helpful for the scientists or whoever are leading the project. And this partnership, we are hoping, will increase the awareness of the different projects that are happening in the Calumet area, give people knowledge and resources on the kinds of projects that are happening. And then if you are interested in monitoring after coming to some of these workshops that we'll be hosting, we kind of give you a taste of what it's like to be out there and collecting data. And I know the term maybe collecting data doesn't sound exciting to everybody. Maybe it makes you feel like, oh, I'm going to be sitting in a lab collecting data. No, you're going to be outside looking for really cool stuff. So that's what our partnership is hoping to foster. Now, this partnership kind of came to be because there is a lack of data, like biodiversity data, in the Calumet region. You can kind of see it on this map where that yellow circle is. It's like a big empty gap. That's the Calumet. So we want more community science and people who are doing wildlife monitoring in that area. And we just held an event there in early March. We know that there's interest from people there. So we kind of are hoping that this partnership will be like a little spark for people who are all interested in this kind of work to come together and do it. We're also hoping to open up participation to community science and have it be more inclusive. We're hoping with this partnership, we can have multi-generational community scientists, people of all identities can come monitor, because historically community science has been pretty insular. So we're hoping that this partnership will kind of move past that. The Calumet is also, I know I'm sure I'm speaking to the choir here, or preaching to the choir. The Calumet has a long history, or a long industrial history, and also a long history of biodiversity. So we want to, we kind of like want to dig into that and see what data is in there, or what data is available for in that region. And I see a hand, Jane. I think Jane.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm just, what do the colors mean on those dots? Like some of those little pins are blue, some are aqua, some are pink. Is there a meaning to that?
I think those are like the different projects. So like different, the different community science projects that I'll talk about in just a second. But yeah, I think those just represent different projects or different places that sites that have monitors, if that makes sense.
Yes. Yeah.
And Abby can jump in whenever.
Okay. Yeah.
So the other reason why we monitor, why we did this partnership, is because there's amazing biodiversity here in the Calumet. So I have some pictures to show you all to kind of drive this point home. These are some images that were taken by our scientists, and some videos that were taken by our scientists at different sites in the Calumet. So we have like a wide variety of organisms.
Oh my God.
This shot is one of my favorites because it's like a deer, like a mid leap. And monitoring in the Calumet, again, answers a lot of questions. So these are some images of headlines that have popped up over the years about things that are happening around the Calumet, around biological events that are happening around the Calumet. So when people in the community monitor, we can have data to answer these really cool questions. We can also think a little bit about how the land responds to change. So like I mentioned earlier, the Calumet is kind of like dual-sided coin. There's a lot of industry, but there's also a lot of biodiversity and restoration. And when people monitor and collect data there, we can get a better sense of how that change affects us and the things around us. Oh, and we can learn a little bit more about the habitats that are there. So if we monitor in the Calumet, we can keep species that are common, and we can learn a little bit about the habitats that are like around bordering the edges of urban and industrial areas.
And Calumet has, sorry to interrupt, but the Calumet area has so many of these unique and awesome, like niche habitats, that there are species that are only found in the Calumet area as opposed to the rest of Illinois or even the Midwest area. And so a lot of these like niche species, we don't know a lot about because there's not a lot of people exploring. And we realize that that has a lot to do with people not knowing about it, people being nervous about exploring those natural areas. So we hope that through informing and sharing these different workshops that people are getting more comfortable, because there is that kind of emotional side of exploring and that area as well. And also the historical side, like Marwah was talking about before with the industry. There's a lot of mixed emotions when we've talked to people from the Calumet area who share that they don't really think that this area is really beautiful or has anything to offer because of a lot of that industry and that talk and how they grew up and what people have shown them that is valuable in these areas. So we really want to shift that narrative and encourage people and bring that hope and excitement, and keep fostering it as well.
Definitely. Thanks. Thank you, Abby. Like, I could not have said that better myself. So the partnership, the Calumet Community Science Partnership, its goal is to raise awareness about many community science projects that are happening in the Calumet area. 3 of them are hosted at the Nature Museum. The 3 are on, these are the 3 that I'm referring to are on the screen. So the Calling Frog Survey, the Illinois Butterfly Monitoring Network, and the Illinois Odonate Survey. So each project focuses on a specific organism. So the Calling Frog Survey focuses on frogs. The IBMN focuses on butterflies, and the Odonate survey focuses on dragonflies and damselflies. So people who monitor for each or all of the projects will focus on those organisms and collecting data on those organisms. So these projects
are up for 1 second. This is Jane. That Illinois Butterfly Monitoring Project is one of the longest citizen-run science experiments. It's been going on since I think the early 70s, right? And it's pretty amazing the data that they've collected. It's really groundbreaking. It's used around the world, and it's also used as a model for other places. So it's something to be really proud of. And it's something that started right here because there were people who were concerned and who took the time to start teaching other people how to do this butterfly monitoring. Everyone can do it.
Yes, definitely. I think IBMN has been around for more than 30 years.
Okay.
35 years, and it's run by Doug Taryn, who we have a little slide introducing him. But yes, like that started as, that is a community science project. The data that is collected can be collected by anyone who takes the training and signs up. And IBMN, amongst other community science projects, are exploratory, so they're not focusing on a specific question like scientists often do. That they have a hypothesis or a question and they try to answer it. These projects are exploratory, so we collect data and then we look for patterns and trends and see if we find something interesting or new. And the bulk of the data over a period of time can give us a really good understanding of the region's species diversity. So this little chart over here kind of shows the number of volunteers for butterfly monitoring in 2 places, New York City and Chicago. So you can see like the proportion of butterfly species reported kind of like goes up and then levels out the more volunteers that there are. And like Jane mentioned, you don't have to just monitor for butterflies here, even though this is where it started. You can monitor anywhere because it kind of has spread all over the country. Yeah, okay. And there are all these 3 community science projects happen all over the Calumet region, at least on the Illinois side. So these are a couple of examples of sites where monitoring happens for all of these projects: Hegewisch Marsh, Whistler Woods, Eggers Grove, Big Marsh. So it's a mix of Park District land and Forest Preserve land as well. So we're going to dive a little bit into some of these workshops. I'm going to start with the Calling Frog Survey. The Calling Frog Survey is run by Allison Sacerdote-Villette. If you attend one of our workshops about the Calling Frog Survey, you will meet Allison, so that's really fun. And the Calling Frog Survey began in 1999 in response to the decline of the cricket frog. So frogs are really important indicator species, especially for wetlands. So it kind of tells you whether an indicator species tells you whether a habitat is healthy or not healthy. So knowing how well the frogs are doing gives us a lot of important data about how the habitat is doing as well. So the goals of the project is to monitor the distribution and the abundance of breeding frogs in this in the Calumet region. And with our data, we've already identified some threats to frog persistence. So as you can imagine, wetland loss and habitat fragmentation, climate change, disease are all things that are impacting frog populations. But the more data we collect through the Calling Frog Survey, the more information we have about those issues. So if you were to monitor for the Calling Frog Survey, you would attend a training in February, and you would have to learn 13 species of frog calls by sound. The survey route for calling frogs can be done with a buddy or more than one buddy. And it's usually done at one of those sites that I mentioned earlier. At different points on a route at one of these sites, you would listen, you would record the species that you hear, and then you would do that at least 3 times in a breeding season. And these are kind of what the breeding seasons look like for different species. So depending on the species that you're looking at, you can start your monitoring in March and go as late as July, depending on the species. This is an example of a frog survey route. So it doesn't have to be a straight line, but as you can see, I think this is about a mile, so it can be long. But what's great about doing the Calling Frog Survey as a monitor is, again, you could do it with a buddy. You can go out with multiple people and make like a trip out of it. And usually these surveys are done in the evenings. So that's one thing to keep in mind.
And they really try to set up the workshops, like the intro workshops for like, they'll set you up if you're a beginner or you're not feeling as confident. They'll give you a route has like a less amount of species that you're looking for. So if you're nervous about like learning 13 frog calls, that's okay. You don't have to start off with that. That's the goal. And we would hope that you might be excited to learn all 13, but we really we'll focus on certain ones that make you feel comfortable and excited to go out and monitor. So we really want this, like Jane and Marwah have been saying, like this is for everyone, and anyone can do community science. So they really try to do those intro workshops and our workshops like we have to really help people get comfortable with the type of sampling and just the different things and sounds you'll be listening for.
Thanks, Abby. Check this chat. Oh no, Jane just shared in the chat that a cemetery 1 block from her house just plowed an acre of vernal wetland. So yeah, that is the kind of like habitat change that we are talking about. And usually, or as of right now, all of the sites that the monitoring happens in are either Chicago Park District land or Forest Reserve land, or not like private land that I know of, but hopefully we can continue expanding the kind of land that monitoring happens in, the more monitors join, and that we can get more information about frogs that are living on private land. This chart over here just shows us a little bit more of that data. So let's see. The species distribution of frogs depending on the route. You can't see the little top right here. 1 second. There we go. which species are more widespread. There we go. So that is, again, really helpful data and really helpful information to have. And it all comes through the monitoring. So this is data that people have gathered by participating in the Calling Frog survey. And one of the best things about these community science projects is that the data that everyone collects is communal. It's not hoarded, it's not kept secret, it's available online and anyone can look at it, anyone can analyze the data. And that's kind of like the community part of community science, that it's available to everybody. And then again, monitoring. If you participate in the Calling Frog survey, you can learn a lot of different things about the frog populations that are living in the Calumet region, what kind of, how they respond to habitat changes, what threats are affecting certain species, phenology, so why certain species call at certain times and why others don't. There's really like a wealth of data and knowledge that can be gleaned just from collecting this auditory data through the Calling Frog survey. And then the other two community science projects, the Illinois Butterfly Monitoring Network and the Illinois Odonate Survey, is run by Doug Tarrin, who also works at the Peggy Notebaert Nature Museum. He runs them with Alan Lawrence, who's not in this picture because he doesn't want his picture taken. But he also works on these projects. And these projects have a little bit of a different protocol when collecting data, but it is similar. So the protocol is walking, doing a pollard walk essentially. So taking a walk in a line in a fixed route, and then recording the butterflies or odonates that you see on that walk. You don't do them together because they're separate projects, but they have a very similar protocol. The requirements for this project are getting a site assignment, so one of those sites that I mentioned earlier, attending a training workshop, and then visiting your site at least 6 times between late spring and then I believe Memorial Day or Labor Day, late summer. And this is kind of what it looks like to do a pollard walk or to collect data. So this is an example of a route. And again, it's repeated 6 times throughout the season. So pick some nice days, go out, take a walk, see what you find, and then record them. And of course, because there is training that is provided for this community science project, you learn how to identify different species. But if you don't learn them all immediately, that's okay. I'm very bad at butterfly ID. You get better with time. Like Abby was saying earlier, we really do want to be inclusive and encourage people to sign up and become monitors, regardless if they're experts in these organisms or not. So you don't have to be. This is an example of the of a field form that you would fill out. So you'd fill out some really important data, the site, the start time, the temperature, and then you would mark off the different kinds of species that you see or don't see, because that's also really important data as well. And if you join the Illinois Butterfly Monitoring Network or the Illinois Odonate Survey, you would be in good company, because as you can see, our participation has grown throughout the years. So as of 2020, we've had almost 1,000 volunteers for the Illinois Butterfly Monitoring Network and almost 350 volunteers, or a little over 350 volunteers for the Illinois Odonate Survey. So you would be in good company. You would be joining a large group of people who already monitor, and we're hoping to even create a little sub-community in this group of people who monitor for the Calumet. So again, this data is very, very important when you're not collecting data for your health. So this data can be used to observe changes over time. So what species have been observed? over that 30 or 35 year range of the project, like I was mentioning earlier. Because this project is so long standing, we can really gain an understanding of what species, how species have changed over a large period of time. You can also, this data can be used to, oh, Jane, are you raising your hand? Do you have a question?
Sorry, I am not. Wasn't me.
Okay. Okay, and then you can also observe changes in abundance of populations over time. So here again, we have a species of butterfly at a specific site, and you can see the changes in abundance. So the number of individuals in that species, how they vary, the average vary over time. And all of this data, again, is collected by people like you, just who go out and see what they find. And then if species are lost or if they appear, that can also be, that information can also be gleaned from the data that monitors collect. So here, this is a really great example of the Carner blue, which is a butterfly that hasn't been observed at some of these Calumet sites since 2012. Why that has happened is a question that has come up because of the data that was collected by monitors. And there's still research being done, so stay tuned. And then learn some more information about butterfly ecology. So again, I'm not the expert scientist, but I'm able to look at this data and kind of see trends and patterns, and then the scientists can run the data themselves and see if they could find out some more information about the butterflies that do live in this region. So if you are interested in monitoring, or you want to learn a little bit more about what it would be like in the field, you can come to one of our workshops that we'll be hosting all throughout this spring and summer. We'll be hosting a workshop for each of these three community science projects, plus 2 more. So we'll have a project or a workshop that gives you a taste of what it would be like to be in the field collecting data for frogs. That will be at Sand Ridge, Saturday, May 13th. And we'll also have a workshop on butterflies, dragonflies, and damselflies at Big Marsh, Saturday, June 10th. We'll also be hosting 2 other workshops about community science projects that are not affiliated with the Nature Museum, but we have been partnering with them because we think their work is very, very valuable. So Audubon Great Lakes will be hosting a workshop on secretive marsh birds next Saturday. I believe registration for that one is closed, so I'm so sorry about that. But we're also hosting a workshop on bees. So if you're interested in bees and monitoring for bees, come to our workshop Saturday, July 15th. And you can register with this QR code that's on screen, or you can go to naturemuseum.org/Calumet 2023, and you can register for these workshops. They are free. Anyone of any age is welcome to join us. If you have grandchildren or children or sisters or moms or dads, bring them, bring them to the workshop. These workshops are not training for these specific projects. They're kind of just like, if you are new to community science, you are new to wildlife monitoring, you want to see what it's like out there, come to these workshops. And then if you want to later sign up for additional training to become an official monitor, that is an option as well. And that's it. I know I flew through this presentation, but if anybody has any questions about these community science programs or projects or our partnership, please feel free to share. And Abby, if I missed anything.
Marwah, I have a question. This is Mike Galbraith.
Yes.
I live about 20 miles south of Wolf Lake in Will County, and I live on a 7-acre pond or small lake. We have all the varieties of wildlife that you can imagine, from turtles to frogs to raccoons to you name it, we have it over here. Are there monitoring projects in the Will County area that you're aware of, or whom I could contact?
That I'm aware of. I know that none of the ones that I have worked with are working in Will County that I'm aware of. I can double check and see if we have any sites that are in Will County. I don't think so. But for example, the project, go back and try to go back. So this community science project that monitors bees, you could do it anywhere. It's not limited to the Calumet. You can do it anywhere because it's through, I believe, the U.S. Department of Agriculture. So if you wanted to, technically you could do this monitoring project in Will County because any data that is collected anywhere is valuable.
Yeah, thank you. I will look into that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, Marwah, this is Blake. How are you?
Hi, Blake. How are you? I'm good.
Okay. Which key animal species you all are trying to protect in the Calumet area?
Oh, that's a really good question. I would say that there isn't one key species because they all have different niches, and they all play different equally important roles in the ecological system in the Calumet. So I think all of these organisms are just as important. I wouldn't say there's one key one that's more important than the other. And I'm only sharing just a slice of the community science projects that exists. There are community science projects on bats. There are community science projects on plants. There are community science projects on singing insects. We worked with oh my gosh, I'm forgetting the name. The Singing Insect Monitoring Project, I believe that's what they're called. So they focus on cicadas and crickets. So there are community science projects for, I'm pretty sure, almost any living thing, because monitoring them is really important. You just really don't know what the data will tell you until you go out there and collect it. So I know that doesn't answer your question really, but I hope it does a little bit.
And then just really quick to jump back to Michael's question about Will County. I also know that with our monitoring projects and with other monitoring projects, you can also set up routes near you or in areas you want to explore. So even if there's not a route there, but you're interested in the area, or Will County is right near you, you can work with the scientists, and they have the requirements that they need, your route has to be at least 40 feet wide because you're observing a 20-foot radius or something like that. And they can easily help you try to find an area that fits those requirements near you. So even if if you're interested in a project and there are no current routes there, always reach out to the project person or leader, and that'll be the email that they provide, and just ask them. And they're really excited about always expanding areas and looking for new ways to incorporate people, because it's for the community. It's community scientists, so we really wanted to make it as accessible and for everyone as possible.
Well, thank you, Abby. I will do that. Thank you.
Michael, question. I'm sorry.
Sorry, I was just going to say, Michael, if you email either Abby and I, we can also connect you to the scientists who can help you find some routes potentially in Will County.
Marwah, I want to find out which animals are making progress in the Calumet. And I know one bird, and that's the pied-billed grebe. And are there others?
That's a really good question. I can't speak too much to the data because I work in education. I'm kind of out there organizing these workshops. The experts really are the scientists who can speak to that much better than I ever can. So if you are interested in learning that kind of information, come to these workshops, because the experts, not me, will be there giving us that data that they analyze for a living. So I'm sorry, Blake.
You've seen any of the rare bird species?
I know when we did this, we ran these workshops last year. We did the protocol for secretive marsh birds, where you play some marsh bird calls and see if they call back to you. And we did get some, and it was like a terrible day weather-wise. Like it was like basically a hurricane. And we still heard, we heard oh my gosh, an American bittern, which is a pretty rare marsh bird. We heard it call back, which was very, very cool. So that's one of the things, even if you are like, I don't think I'll ever monitor for these projects, we still encourage you to come out to these workshops, because you can hear potentially and see some really, really cool and special organisms that might only live in the Calumet or in this region. So that's an example of one organism that I would say is rare that we heard last year when we ran this program.
I have a question. This is Eve DeRay. And this may not be your area of expertise, but when I looked at that graph for the butterflies, it looks to me like the population of butterflies has really gone down in the Calumet region in that time period. Yes.
This one?
Yeah. Am I reading this correctly? I mean, I'm not sussing out specific data, but
that's what it looks like to me, but I know it really does depend on the species. Like some species will have gone down or disappeared, like the Carner blue has disappeared from certain sites, hasn't been observed, I should say. And others that have not necessarily suffered that fate or have been observed. So again, not my area of expertise.
right.
I can't really dive too much into the data, but
Sure. No, I understand. And that's a topic of a whole nother presentation, I imagine, but it seemed a little striking to me. And like I said, this is just, sort of, we're just flashing on this graph, and it's like, wow, it looks like that population has gone down a little bit. So anyway, thank you for your response to that. I appreciate that.
yeah. Oh yes, Jane, I know exactly what you're talking about. There was some freak weather like
2012. Yep.
yes,
Mhm,
yes.
mhm. Yes.
And again, we have that data because
Right.
monitors collected it. So
And an interesting story with the Carner blue, if folks are interested. But what was cool was not cool, but what was interesting was that we were able to use this data and also data from other places to see that the really warm year kind of mismatched the food resources for the butterfly. And then that's why the caterpillars weren't able to get enough food when they emerged. And the adult butterflies were able to move on to their next cycle. And so we were able to learn that because multiple projects were gathering data and like paying attention, collecting this information. And so that graph with like all the butterfly populations that are changing, it's showing their population sizes, but it's also data can only tell a story for so much, and it has to be compared. So it's, we have to take it piece by piece and understand, like you all were like noticing as well, the context of everything. So what data was being collected those years, and is it shifting because of what's out there, or is it shifting because of other reasons as well? So, but that's why we're monitoring, right? So we can have a more holistic view and a deeper understanding of the different stories that our data is telling us.
Eve, this is Mike. I agree with you. Last year, I had a difficult time finding the same number of butterflies over the previous years. But I went over to Acres one day, and they were butterflies, there were monarchs all over the place. But I could not find as many last year as the previous years either. So
Okay.
I share. Yeah. Any other questions? You know, the chat room has 27 messages. If folks haven't checked it, I would suggest that you do. I don't know what's in there, but there might be something that you would be interested in.
Have there been any have there been any studies on historical flora and fauna of the Calumet prior to European settlement?
That is a very good question. I don't know. If you find any, let me know. I would be very interested in that information. I know that some community science projects can be long standing, but I don't know of any like established ones, official ones, that have been around for that long. So I'm not sure.
Does anybody know? Anybody else?
I also don't know, but I do know that there's an exhibit right now at the Field Museum about the Calumet and its history. And I haven't been able to check it out, but I've heard cool things about it. And they were trying to be as like very holistic and mindful of the deep history as well, and pre-colonization as well. So I would check out that exhibit if you ever can. And we can dig around for more information or spread out our tendrils and see if folks know or have more information to those kind of questions as well.
Yeah, I can just add, the president of Ali is Dr. Willink, Phil Willink. And he wrote a paper maybe 12 years ago on more than a decade on fish in Wolf Lake. And I guess the Field Museum was checking on them since the late 1800s. And so he's had data that goes back that far. But I don't know, I haven't seen any data that would go back earlier than that.
What about other places such as Lake Calumet, George Lake, and others?
Yeah, I don't know on that. Like, any other questions? Well, if not, I can bring this to a close, and I just want to remind everybody